I never imagined that love could feel so lonely. From the outside, everything looked normal. We were still together. We still talked. We still shared routines. But inside, something had shifted. The warmth that once filled our conversations had faded into politeness. Touch became rare. Laughter became quiet. Presence became absence. I kept asking myself when it started, what I had missed, what I had done wrong. I told myself it was stress, routine, adulthood, that relationships naturally cool down over time. But deep down, I felt something else, an emotional distance I could not explain. I thought I understood my heart and my relationship, but what I didn't know was that a resource existed that could help me rebuild my life and understand emotional disconnection. You'll find it in the description and comments. At that moment, I wasn't afraid of losing him. I was afraid of losing us while still being together. At first, I tried harder. I became more attentive, more available, more careful with my words. I asked how he felt, what he needed, what was wrong. My questions were met with short answers, vague explanations, emotional neutrality. I'm just tired. Nothing is wrong. You're overthinking. And slowly, I began to doubt myself. I wondered if I was being too sensitive, too needy, too demanding. I adjusted my expectations downward. I learned how to speak less, how to feel quietly, how to accept crumbs of connection and call it intimacy. I was fighting for a bond that felt like it was slipping through my hands, and I didn't. Do you know whether I was trying to save the relationship or trying to save the version of myself that once felt loved inside it? The conflict grew in the silence between us. Not in arguments, not in dramatic moments, but in the absence of emotional reciprocity. I would share something meaningful and it would disappear into indifference. I would reach for closeness and it would be met with distance. The person I loved was physically present but emotionally elsewhere. And that kind of loneliness is more painful than being alone because you are constantly reminded of what is missing. I began to ask myself the questions that haunt so many in distant relationships. Why does it feel like I am loving alone? Why am I trying so hard for someone who seems so far away? Is this what love becomes? The breaking point did not come with a fight. It came with clarity. One night, sitting beside him in silence, I realized I was shrinking to fit into the emotional space he was offering. I was lowering my needs to avoid being too much. I was editing my feelings to maintain what little connection remained. And in that moment, a painful truth surfaced. I was no longer in a relationship built on mutual presence. I was in a relationship sustained by my effort alone. I wasn't asking for perfection. I wasn't asking for constant passion. I was asking to be felt, to be seen, to be emotionally met. And I wasn't. I began to understand that emotional coldness is not always cruelty. Sometimes it is emotional avoidance. Sometimes it is fear of intimacy. Sometimes it is unresolved wounds that make closeness feel threatening. But understanding someone's pain does not mean sacrificing your own. A partner being cold and distant is not a temporary phase when it becomes the emotional climate of the relationship. And love cannot survive in an environment where one heart is always reaching and the other is always retreating. Rebuilding did not mean trying harder to change him. It meant turning inward and asking myself what I had been neglecting in order to hold on to the relationship. I had to confront the part of me that believed love meant endurance. That connection was something you earned by being patient, quiet, adaptable. I began to rebuild my emotional boundaries, to express what I needed without apologizing for it, to stop chasing warmth from someone who could not or would not offer it. And in doing so, I started to feel something I had lost: self-respect. The most difficult realization was this: you cannot save a connection by yourself. Love requires two emotionally present people. Effort is powerful, but it is not enough when it flows in only one direction. I had to accept that wanting closeness does not make you needy, it makes you human. That asking to be emotionally met is not demanding, it is foundational. and that staying in a relationship where your emotional needs are consistently unmet will slowly teach you to abandon yourself. Today, I understand that a cold and distant partner does not always mean a lack of love, but it always reveals a lack of emotional availability. And emotional availability is not optional in a healthy relationship. I no longer see my struggle as a failure. I see it as the moment I chose to listen to what my heart had been telling me all along. That connection is not something you beg for. It is something that either exists in mutual presence or it does not. At the end of my journey, I discovered guidance and a resource that helped me understand emotional distance, anxiety, and how to rebuild my life when a relationship stops feeling like home. You can access it too. The link is in the description and comments. Because the goal is not to hold on to someone who cannot meet you emotionally. The goal is to return to yourself without losing your capacity to love. True freedom begins in the mind and only then appears in life. If this story resonated with you, like the video and subscribe to Love and Mind for more content on emotional psychology, relationships, and healing.